hello, Dylan. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. My name is Alfonso. On behalf of the Mexican blog slash YouTube channel, La Tumba, we try to report and discuss the new generation of extreme music, the new era, and I believe that TIFF fits properly into that description. Again, thank you for being here and welcome to this interview.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned before, I have been wanting for the opportunity to talk to you about your music and the things that you produce through the name of TIFF. And over the years, over the course of several of your records, it's been increasingly hard to pinpoint out your sound, your sound, you know. It could be this, it could be that. But just an hour ago, I searched for your Instagram account and it says there, true Los Angeles dungeon pop. And yeah, I'm sold. So who came out with that description?
Yeah, I mean it's a riff on the old true Norwegian black metal
Right.
uh slogan. I think it was, who the fuck was that? Mayhem. Um they'd have it on the back of their shirt. So I uh just stole it as a little nod to it. We're not black metal, but I'm I've it's still like a big part of what I draw from it in different ways for inspiration. And then Dungeon Pop, I heard the phrase a long time ago. Thief was on a radio show called Dungeon Pop, and this was like a small college radio station. They just played a lot of like strange electronic stuff, and they're now since defunct. The radio show's no longer there. But I just really liked that phrase, Dungeon Pop, because and so it didn't exist anymore, so I took the name. Yeah, I just think it just describes what I do. I think, it's got the darker side, but it's also like they're, essentially a lot of it is pop structure in the song. It's verse,
Right.
chorus, whatever. Um, so maybe a little bit of a nod to that too, although it's not pop music, but yeah.
It's got the hookiness and the catchiness of pop music.
Yeah, a lot of it does, yeah. And you know, I grew up listening to, I was a fanatical Bjork fan, so like a
Mm.
lot of that songwriting approach is sort of really um hardwired into me.
And seems to me that pop music, even though by definition is mainstream music, it it can get a lot with different types of song structures. And
Hmm.
we often don't think of being experimental and instead of other spectrums of music. And well, that's something interesting about pop. That is commercial, but it can be a lot of experimental in its own um, compositional tones.
Yeah, for all the horrible pop stuff that exists and all the harm it's done to the world, like it also has in some ways really refined the songwriting craft, especially with
Mm.
production. I mean, sometimes I hear like, I don't know, somehow a new whatever popular pop song, and I might not like the song, but I'll be listening to it and I'll be like, oh my God, the production is so good. It's so well done that yeah, there's good in everything.
Right. Well, the new album Bleed Memory is pure, indescribable, often irrational joy. I am mesmerized. I think you have done it again with the
Thank you.
experience that this provide. And I want to, well, before we dive deep into that conversation, I want to first ask you about your origins with extreme music. I know I'm seeing your t-shirt, a Carcass t-shirt, that you have a extreme metalhead past. Even I mean, even you played at some point with the botanist. So yeah, I want to ask you about how did you introduce into music as a whole and find a taste for extreme music?
Yeah. Music as a whole, I just was always interested in it as a kid. My mom was pretty cool, and she would give me like, I remember she gave me like an Offspring CD. She gave me like a Radiohead CD. You know, she was just very like, "Hey, look at this new band I found."
Mm.
Um and then I found punk music, um, in my very early teens, and then uh I was really and then my parents got me a guitar because I was always, humming stuff, and I had like this little um I don't know what, I guess it was a sort of ukulele that I was always
Mm.
trying to play, and I wanted a drum set, but they got me a guitar, and that really set me down the path of making music. But then um my friend's older sister's boyfriend, I think I was probably 14. Um this guy was much older. He was like 19 or 20, and he was really into metal, and he started showing me and some other friends a lot of black metal stuff. And at first I wasn't really into it. I was much more into death metal. Um and but then I just started to become more and more exposed to extreme music. The first metal rec vinyl I ever bought was Opeth's Orchid.
Mm.
And then I remember I bought Decapitated's Nihility and Death's The Sound of Perseverance. And then I was like, oh my God. And then it just set me off, and then I became a total nerd about it. Um, and then, yeah, then long story short, I knew how to play hammered dulcimer. And then,
Mm.
I found, I saw an interview with botanist, who is just his name's Roberto. And in the interview, they asked him if he'd ever perform live, and he's like, "Yeah, but where am I going to find someone that likes black metal and plays hammer dulcimer?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that's me." So I just found his email and emailed him, and then started in botanist, and um, yeah, I never really wrote, or I haven't released much of my own, like just pure extreme music. I've got so many things on hard drives that one day, I might find the time to finish up, like more like straight black metal stuff, but um Thief's
So,
my focus.
so you have had your rounds with extreme music, making and composing extreme music before.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Even I've got at least an album's worth of a black metal album that just needs vocals. That I just haven't finished just because, I have
Mm.
a day job, and I'm a thief, and just life in general. Um, I wrote a whole botanist album. The Shape of He to Come was I wrote all the dulcimer for that, along with Robert Thief's live drummer. Um, what else have I done? Yeah, that's pretty much the only like true extreme start to end um extreme stuff I've written.
Well, you have an interesting approach to your own craft, and it's interesting that you have like this background with extreme music. And it's only now that I'm realizing that Otrobor is Roberto spelled backwards, you know.
Hmm.
And I want to ask you before we start the conversation about TIFF, what kind of experience or things did you learn through your through working or playing with a band like Botanist that has a very unique and experimental approach to black metal music?
Yeah, man, I learned a lot from being in Botanist, because Botanist was the first like bigger band I had been in. I kind of joined Botanist right when they started to blow up a bit. Um,
Mm.
uh, I won't say I learned so much uh in the musical crafting world or the songwriting world. but I learned a lot about running a band and touring and
Mm.
um, how to work with sort of people in the industry. Because I had a back seat for about 4 or 5 years watching Otribor run Botanist. Um, and yeah, I learned a lot in regards to that. Like Thief is going to Germany in September to play the Prophecy Fest, and I kind of know what to do because Botanist has toured Europe. I'm like I know all of the boxes I have to check. Um, I also will say, actually, when I wrote the shape of he to come for Botanist, um, that did unlock some creative doors for me I didn't know existed. He just gave me like 40 minutes of drum tracks. Like he
Mm.
wrote, yeah, and it was like each song was like 8 to 10 minutes. So I had to come up with a sustainable way to write to all those drum tracks in a short period of time. And that really I don't know how to explain it, but I learned a lot about like working from my gut uh and disengaging with my head with that album.
Okay, and it will be fair to say that also by working with Botanist, you also find a home in Prophecy Productions, right? Like
Say it
that
again.
was you find a home in Prophecy Productions, like that was a gateway to that label for your music.
Uh I don't know actually, Botanist joined Prophecy several years after Thief joined, and
Mm, okay.
yeah, I actually cold called Prophecy. I just found their, AR email and just sent them an email saying, "Hey, check this out. Any interest in this?" I'm sure me having been in Botanist helped get my foot in the
Right,
door. Yeah,
right,
it's like
right.
it was on my resume, I'm not I'm coming in with something.
I have this question prepared. Well, I prepared for later in the conversation, but now that you mentioned the drum tracks that Trevor sent you, it makes sense to ask you this right now. Um, I often find your songs that are big on drumming and drum patterns and beats and kicks. And I know this about Botanist and Trevor that he started his song just by with the drumming part, right? And then it builds from there. Um, I believe that some of your songs starts in the same way, with the drum patterns, rhythms, and beats and kicks. Is that correct?
Yeah. Um, I would say maybe I'm trying to think. It's one of the first things. Often the very first thing that happens is uh either a bass line or a bass sound, not even like not even a musical idea, but just like a sound or a texture on like a keyboard. And
Mm.
then usually and from there it's usually drums or some sort of choral or sample element around it. Uh but maybe 30-20% start with just pure drums, just but once sort of like the mood, the tonality is sort of set. Yeah, drums become one of the main focuses. One of them becomes one of the main focuses. Yeah.
Um, in the way I remember your first album, it was like somehow rhythm driven, but then Map of Lost Keys kind of lost that and was more exploratory, in the aura and haunted soundscapes. I want
Mm.
to ask you if you had like maybe an influence that you can mention about this kind of mixing of drums and the electronic side of beats and kicks.
Uh, yeah, I don't know many bands that do. I mean, Portishead, um, the first. Do you know the black metal band Altars of Plague?
Right. Yes.
That guy, I forget his name. He started an electronic band called Wife, Wife. The first EP of that album is really of that band is really good. Um, Olver did it
Mm.
quite a lot on uh
Maybe Manes.
which one?
Manes from Norway also.
Oh, I don't know Manus, but I've heard people compare me to them.
Okay.
Blood Inside by Olver. There's a lot of live and programmed drums mixed in. Yeah.
Right. Well, I find myself impressed or admiring acts or artists that seemingly, let's say, transcend or escape, whatever you want to call it, the direct approach to extreme metal into a more singular and morph sound that still retains certain notion of the extreme music, most notably, of course, with bands like Olver. I don't know if you're familiar with Lux Occulta, the
Mm,
Mandalore Collective, and more recently, artists like, I want to say, Christine Hayter, ex
mm,
Lingua Ignota. And to me, I think Thief have always extrapolated this aura and notion of extreme music and the sensory attack of extreme metal into up-tempo beats.
mm.
Um, where did you obtain the idea, or like, I want to make this? I'm a metalhead at heart. I'm assuming, but I want to do like this. I mean, dungeon pop, even though I'm sure that wasn't on your mind.
So the question is, how did I decide to make it? What's the question?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, a metalhead doesn't necessarily have to make metal. But
Oh, right, yeah.
I think I appreciate that you are a metalhead in your music, even though
Mm,
you are not necessarily pointing out that directly. So
right.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. There's, I mean, there's so much metal out there that is amazing. And I didn't feel at the time that there was much new I could do with that.
Okay.
Um, and I really wanted to find a specific new, pleasing sound to me that expressed sort of the way that it just had the atmosphere and the way that I feel and the atmosphere that I really love, which is which I have always felt in you know, choral music, sacred chant
Mm,
music. And I just I remember I just got the idea one day of like, oh, I want, and I've been listening also to electronic music for a really long time, like, Aphex Twin,
mm,
Bjork, um, Clark, Square Pusher. I was like, oh, I wonder what it would sound like if I put those two together. Like, I bet that would be super cool. And then I just sat down at my computer one day and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Like, I want to do a whole album like this. Is what I thought. And it just clicked and it made sense. And it was still to me satisfying and it was satisfying the extreme music part of me.
mm,
Because it is can get pretty dark. There is screaming, there is heavy parts, but it was also satisfying the part of me that like wanted to expand to not be, to expand genre and to uh, make something like really new and fresh, because I want to make music that I want to hear also. And I don't want to just be another carbon copy of my favorite black metal band, So,
Well, as I mentioned before, I discovered Thief, your music, with Map of Lost Keys. And I think that was the right point for me as a metal enthusiast, because that album is very particular, very peculiar in your discography. If we can go back and listen to all of your albums, even that one is very unique. And as I mentioned before, I think that was like, I don't know, there you give opportunities to yourself to explore these dark places that in your music still preserves, but is in a more nuanced way than in that album. What can you tell me about that particular work?
About Map of Lost Keys in particular.
Yes.
Geez, let me go back. Geez, it's been a long time since I've even listened to it. I remember coming off of the first album, Thieves, Hymn in D minor, and I felt like I had a much deeper understanding of what Thief is. And I remember I wanted to like expand upon that and kind of get heavier than what was on the first record, and that I wanted a particularly mystical record in terms of lyrics and songwriting approach. Like everything in that album is sort of seen from this strange mystical point of view, like Frost Breath is not Frost Breath is about anxiety and panic and like mental illness, but it's not talked about it directly. It's talked about it as a way of like this strange creature named Frost Breath that exists and that breaks into people's homes, so it's kind of got this surreal aspect. And then, Desert Gin is like a very sort of mystical dream, like the lyrics are like a mystical dream. And then what comes after that? Yeah, and then I really kind of decided that, the flow of Thief albums needs to be like this. It needs to be intentional, and that Map of Lost Keys kind of goes like this, and then it kind of chills out for a bit, and then it goes back up, and then it kind of, it's got this dynamic flow. It's got, great movies have plot points where it's just like pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. And then, there's always like the most epic long song that is last. Yeah. I think that's all I can remember about it right now.
No,
It's been a
and it's
long
great.
time since I've listened to it.
It's not been that long for me. I recently listened
Right.
to that record, so I have some fresh memories or recollection of that work. And I think that by the end of the record, the last songs or the mood of the ending part of the album is more up tempo, more upbeat. And I don't know if you consciously done this kind of thing in your albums, but sort of um, points out the next word, the tone of the next music. And that's my experience with that record.
Yep,
The
100%.
following record.
Yep, 100%. Map of Lost Keys, Signals. I'm sorry, Thieves Hymn and D minor, Signals, Map of Lost Keys, Map of Lost Keys, Signals. Yeah, 16 deaths.
Mm,
Because usually by the time I'm finishing a record, I'm already getting ideas for the next record. Like
okay.
I'll probably have a lot of, it's I'm sure it's like any writer who's like writing a novel. They're like, oh, that'd be a great subplot, but the book's already full. I'm gonna save that for later.
Like foreshadowing.
Yeah. And in 2013, before Thief was really even a thing, I made an electronic album that I called Thief, but I didn't have like really anything done for it. That didn't have really any choir, except for the last song had choir at the end, so I think I was even doing it then. In my closet somewhere, I have 50 tapes of this album that will never be released, this Proto Thief album, because it's not very good, but yeah. Yep, yeah. I don't know, uh, what's the last song on 16 Deaths? Uh, yeah, I would say, yeah, and then 16 Deaths definitely signals Bleed Memory. It kind of ends on this like very solid trip hop, like backbeat, and then it starts Bleed Memory. I will say for Bleed Memory, I did not intentionally foreshadow the next album.
Okay.
Uh,
It's
maybe
like,
it'll work out, maybe it'll happen, but yeah.
so as of now, it's like you are blindfolded as to what you could do next.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, I've probably got the skeleton of the next album already finished.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, I think right now it's 14 or 15 tracks. Um, so I kind of know what it's going to sound like, but I didn't know last year when I finished Bleed Memory.
Mhm.
Uh, because when usually when an album is released, the artists had been done with it for quite a while.
Okay.
Because yeah, takes forever to get the product printed and the PR cycles and all that stuff.
Well, I want to take a moment to talk about the 16 days of my master because at the time I wanted to interview you, but I feel like I wasn't ready to have a
Mm,
full-on conversation. And I have a weird question, sort of weird question, and that is that after listening to that album over 2 years, in my mind, in that record, Thief sounds like and looks like a futuristic, intelligent entity that somehow is in love or admires the elegance of and beauty of the classic art and the lost era, with these coral chants, and is projected projecting snapshots of textures and scenes from these periods of humanity in its own syntax, perhaps mocking and honoring some parts of history. Sounds apocalyptic, violent, and also beautiful. It's in a way very dehumanizing,
mm,
but also reflecting on human suffering. So
mm.
to what extent are you aware of sounding like this synthetic entity, but displaying very intricate human emotions?
I have never considered that, but I think it's really cool. That's I really like that interpretation. Um, I would say from what you just described, what I did have intent with was like violent, you know? It's got this surreal violence.
Yeah,
It's got, a lot of beauty in it too, and it's even sort of like looking at how violence can even appear beautiful. Which especially like I think that is apparent in the album cover,
yeah.
which is really this beautiful painting of I can't remember, it's a Dutch painter. But Joseba Escubi, the Spanish painter who painted over it, you know, really disfigured that painting. It looks gory. It's not. It's just, you know, red paint strokes, but it looks very violent. Um, and I wouldn't say there's much of a nod to like, you know, the classical art in a bygone era, if I understood what you're saying correctly,
Yeah,
but I can see the comparison because of the album cover, and you know, I'm sampling
definitely.
old classic
Yeah,
stuff, you know,
definitely.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the artwork textures but reinforce that idea on me, you know, of
Hmm.
like if you get a robot, the direction of glitching out a classic painting, that
Mm.
sort of could be the result.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, when you often deprive yourself or your process of conventional way of structuring a song, um, what kind of parameters do you set on yourself when piecing a song together to find a balance into a good, strange song?
So, I want to make sure I understand the question. So, are you asking like when I write any song, what parameters do I set, or when I don't have any parameters, how do I do it?
I see your parameters as unconventional. So
Okay.
when you don't focus on the verse chorus type of formula,
Yep.
what sort of parameters do you set on yourself?
It's just completely like the next indicated action.
Okay.
So
Intuition?
it completely intuitive, you know, if it's just like this part feels like it should go on another 32 bars, and that's what happens. And it's like, oh, this part definitely needs like a bit of a break, and I want to introduce this cool sounding thing. And
Mm,
I will, yeah, there will be no form at all. Usually I can't ever help but not write in a like an energetic structure. Like usually a song goes like this, or a song goes like this, or it
okay.
kind of goes like this, you know. Um, that's just how it usually is, but yeah, I don't ever think about it. And I usually know pretty soon when I start playing with some sounds or a beat or a sample what the song is gonna be. If it's gonna be more structured, like if right away there's like a great hook, I'm like, okay, this is gonna
Mm,
be the chorus, and then the verse is gonna like hype up that and bring it up, you know. But if it's more like textural and you know ethereal, and it's more about atmosphere, then I won't worry about too much about verse, chorus, anything.
okay.
I'll just do what serves that feeling throughout the whole track.
I asked you this because a few days ago I was speaking with the drummer of Inter Arma. I don't know if you're familiar with that band.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in, well, he was mentioning about how to disrupt the muscle memory of creativity, you know. He said he often played drums and practice without touching the snare or without touching, I don't know, that part, you know.
Yeah.
So in that way, he forces himself to create new avenues, you know, in drum patterns and such. So I was curious about what kind of things do you play with your ideas to in order to, you know, um, flex the muscle differently.
Right, yeah. That's kind of how Thief started. Um, you know, my main instrument is guitar.
Okay,
Uh, I even
interesting.
I studied classical guitar in college.
Okay,
Um, I've been playing. I used to be like super into shredding. I could play every single Death song. Like,
nice.
uh, so Thief started with I wanted to not be no guitar.
Mm,
And I don't think there's any guitar in Thief until 16 Deaths of My Master. So
yeah.
that's one way, because I wanted to force myself to learn more about other ways of creating music, because anytime I write guitar music, it just sounded like Emperor, or it just sounded like Death. Like I could not do, you know?
Yeah,
So
the influence is too hard
yeah,
or
yeah,
too
yeah,
heavy.
yeah. Um And also, this is a sideline. Like, I live in an apartment. It's really hard to record loud guitar. Anytime I wanted to record guitar, I have to fucking load up my Mesa Boogie, go rent a rehearsal space, take all of my gear there to record. Like, it's such a hassle. So I figured if I live in an apartment, I should find a way to, also be conducive to the space that I have. And then I also decided, at least for the first album, like no keyboards at all.
Okay, okay.
So the first album is just pure, it's all samples, all choir samples, except for there's some bass synth. So yeah, I do that. And then I've gotten much more flexible. Like 16 Deaths was like, okay, I need some guitar here. Like I've set out. And then Bleed Memory, it was interesting because Bleed Memory ended how it did not start. Bleed Memory first was like a very like rock record. I was like all actual drums, lots of guitar. And then it didn't sound good, so I switched everything. And then for the new album I'm writing now, it's usually not so much limiting myself in a way, but it's learning a new way of doing something and leaning into that. So with the new album, I've started a lot of the effects and sounds being used are digital artifacts. So, if you take a reverb and you sing through it, it just sounds like reverb. It's like, ah. But if you put 10 distortions after it and then a limiter and then a compressor, what happens is it just sound like you go, ah, and then it goes like, ah.
Good.
It sounds really, really weird. It sounds alien, because you've got all these different parameters, like just fucking none of it makes sense. So I was like, oh man, I want that. I want to figure out a way to make songs with a lot of that, like that being, like what happens if I put choir through that? What happens if I put drum through that? What happens if I put synth through that? So that's what's happening right now yeah. So long story short, it's less about taking away and less about limiting and more about finding one particular or two particular ideas and just having those guide my decisions.
And I guess this field of music in which you are on is very freeing, very unrestrained in that regard in production. Yes, I do acknowledge that things can get pretty weird with TIFF. And actually, my next question was, can you tell if you are going too far with an idea for a song? And do you make a U-turn? Or is this point of delicate balance what you strive for in your music?
Repeat the question. I'm not sure I understood.
Sure. Can you tell if you are going too far with a weird idea, pretty fucked up thing? And if so, do you make a U-turn, or is this moment or point in your compositions what you strive for in your music?
Right. Yeah, I'll go too far a lot. Usually it's there's a saying, I don't remember, some author said it, write drunk, edit sober. So usually when I'm writing, I'm not being restrictive or too logical, and then I'll revisit the track and I'm like, oh my God, this is boring. No one wants to hear like 3 minutes of this cool drum pattern thing I made, so then it's like I have to start like calming the track down a bit and just making it make sense, making it cutting away some fat. And Bleed Memory was a ton of that. As I mentioned, like a lot of the songs were like much more rock sounding.
Yeah.
which you can definitely hear in like Cinderland, um, and I think Prankwian, and
Pneuma Enthusiasticon.
yeah,
That song is
hell yeah,
top
that's the
notch.
heaviest thief track
Yeah.
ever, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear it there, but it was like I was like, I don't know, I think I was listening to like a lot of A Perfect Circle or something, and I just really loved, they have such great choruses, and they sound pretty cool, and I don't know, I just went off the deep end. I went way too far into a sound that wasn't working, and eventually I had like at least 30 tracks, and I don't know, 70% of them like weren't good enough, and I was just like, I had to some of them will never see the light of day. Some of them I reworked and they made them on the album, and I'm very happy with them. Some of them went on the bonus CD. I don't know if you've heard that yet.
Not yet.
Okay. I'll have to
Uh,
send it to you.
For this one, this one has 12 songs.
Yeah, and there's also a bonus CD with I think eight
Okay.
other songs. So I'll send it to you. Or I'll
Thank
send
you.
you a download link. It's got 3 or 4 songs that didn't make it on the album. They almost made it, but it just didn't really flow with everything. And then it's got a bunch of ambient tracks that I made during the year, or the couple years, and yeah, it's part of the art book, um, which you'll have to um, give me your home address when we're done, and I'll send you the art book too.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah,
Well, you did mention about no one wants to listen to this boring drum pattern that I like, and it made me think of my favorite song, or one of my favorite songs from you, Scorpion Mother.
yeah,
That song is very particular or very enhanced in the drum, but it gives me this nostalgic vibe from my childhood. I can't describe it, the singing voice, the type of melody. Um, to me sounds like late 90s, early 2000s, uh, like something that I remembered, but I can't really put my finger on, And the new album, Bleed Memory, give me that a similar vibe with the song, actually the song Bleed Memory,
uh,
I can give me that sort of nostalgic feeling. What can you tell me about Scorpion Mother? I have to ask you about that song.
yeah. I don't know. That's the same way I feel about it. It's like my intuition wants to create that feeling, that mid to late 90s, maybe very early 2000s like
Yeah.
feeling. I think there's a term for it. I think it's called hauntological. I think
Mm,
I believe that's a term for like a feeling of like uh there's like a part of you that remembers it, but it maybe never existed, or you can't remember exactly.
right.
Um, Yeah, and I think trip hop in general as a genre has always done that for me.
Mm.
Um, and so with Scorpion Mother, how did that get written? What did I have first? That was one of the last tracks I wrote for 16 Deaths, and I made the bass synth sound, and I just started humming over it, just sort of like finding a vocal pattern, like la 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 la. And then I was just like, oh man, I fucking feel this right now. Okay, let me like really quick just jam on this. And then like, oh, this is it. I gotta find a drum. I gotta do drums for this now. And by the time, like 4 hours later, like most of the track is done. And I was like, oh shit, this is great. I have to add this to the album now.
Mm.
There was no like conscious effort to write a song like that. It's just like I will start playing with an idea or a sound, and it just takes me in that direction.
Yeah, and it's a very unique song in the experience that that album announced. I remember the first song was Apple
Apple eaters.
Apple Eaters, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very up tempo, very upbeat. I was like, okay, this is very dancey, you know.
Uh,
And that song took me by surprise. Also, another thing that you may not be familiar to, I wanted to display that song so much in my Instagram stories, but it wasn't available. That particular song on the album wasn't available on Instagram until recently, I believe. I don't know what happened there.
yeah, I don't know either. Damn.
Yeah, but anyways, let's talk about Bleed Memory. I I I mentioned this before. This is pure irrational, undescribable, incomprehensible joy, but it's man, the joy that I received from this record is top notch, unique,
Oh,
honestly.
thank you.
And I know that the running theme of this album is very personal to you, so I want to ask you a couple of things on that matter. Um, was it hard for you to document on these things or the disease and trying to represent, or was it therapeutical in a way to deal with the grief in this way?
Yeah, I think it wasn't hard. Um, it was, I guess it was therapeutic. It was just nice to be able to have a place to allow like fear and sadness to just like I could just play with it and have, have a creative space where I could sort of unpack it and give it a name and give it a sound and then just sort of let go of it. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that feels right. Yeah.
Mm, and also, was this in a way of I don't the approach to this theme or this topic, while very personal? Was this a way of honoring your father, his memory, or you deal with this disease in a more existential type of way?
Yeah, I think it was all that. It definitely was looking at memory and the concept of memory in an existential way. As soon when my father started to show dementia and I the more and more I realized like how big of a life change this was going to be for not only me and him, but everything. I was like, well, of course, I'm going to write about this. And then I just started to. But then I was like, I don't want to do a whole album that's explicitly about my dad with dementia because then it doesn't leave a lot of room for other people's interpretation, and stuff. So then that's when I started to bring in the existential idea of it and looking at memory as a concept and my experience with it. And some songs are purely just memories and looking at it from a certain angle. Like uh like pissing is one of those tracks, or
Mm,
it's
okay.
just the memory, and then apparitions is kind of about both a memory and the concept of memory, so it's because what happened when my dad started, I had never dealt with dementia or memory loss before. And what happened when I would see him forget like the most important things and things about his life and start to have delusions, he would start to think he kept thinking people were stealing his money. He kept thinking that there was a woman in his apartment. That all like made me very afraid because my biggest fear growing up was losing my mind, and here it was happening in front of me. So I really needed to confront that fear and look at memory and like recognize like, oh, my sense of self is deeply tied into um m my story, and my story is composed of memories. And so what happens if I see those memories as just ghosts, as just things that aren't really there, that have come and gone, or aren't true representations of reality, you know? And uh that brought me a lot of fear, you know, that was scary. And a lot of that I was projecting onto my father too, and there was some transference going on. And like all of that, I don't even remember what your question was now. All
No,
of
no.
that has made like a huge um roiling melting pot of content and um lyrical conceptual ideas that created the album.
Um, yeah, you did answer my question uh, perfectly and detail in a very detailed manner. Um, I think it made you aware of that, you know, of these things that you are not consciously thinking about our identity formed from our memories. Even though I think as a society, the psychological effect of our history collectively give us a sense of self, you know, what we have done in the past. So if you lost your own particular self, I mean, I can't imagine what that must have been, what that does do for in ourselves, you know.
Mm,
But I was impressed by how you project these things in the album, in the tones, in the melodies. And
mm.
it's beautiful. It's broad again, and sometimes I don't know how you come up with these ideas. I don't know. These are things that I haven't heard before, you know. And I take pride myself in being a very enthusiastic listener, you know, trying to discover something new. But this again gave me that experience.
Oh, thank you very much. That's all I wanted. That's all I want to happen.
I want to also um, mention that the artwork again is by the same artist,
Hmm.
Joseba Scooby, if I remember
Hmm.
his name correctly.
Yep.
And I see some resemblance in the repainting of the original painting by this other author, which name was William Charles Utermonlen. It was a figurative artist painting, which did a series of self-portraits while losing his memories, you know, his ability
Mm,
to paint. And I don't know if this was intentional, the fact that it reminds me of like a combination of the artist and that sort of um, impression of that um, work.
mm. I'm not familiar with that artist you just mentioned or his work, but the it the art does reflect the album. You know, well, like very first off, I just saw the picture, and there was a couple other of Scooby's pictures I liked, but I was like, okay, that's the picture. I'm not even gonna think about why that's the picture. But
Mhm.
then I started looking at it and really absorbing it. I was like, oh, this feels like the album. Like, here's this person, this I can't remember who it is, this saint on the album cover, but he's sort of got like a veil over him,
Like
and his
Saint Peter. Yeah.
yeah, St. Peter, that's right. And his outlines are sort of melting into the background. Like his sense of self is a little blurred, you know, and he
Mm.
kind of looks go like a ghost, you know, there's like this white film there. So um it really, I think my intuition knew the logic there before my mind could arrive to it. And and then there's just also uh the meta-ness of Scooby's work that I really relate to, where he's taking something old that exists and he's completely transforming it into something new, which is the same thing I do with like when I sample choral old chants, you know? He's just doing it in a different medium.
Yeah, it is very fitting to the music, the
Yeah,
expression of his art. So
yeah.
you did choose that painting in particular, and you give that painting. That was like your direction to the artist. That painting.
Oh no, he had already created it.
Ah, okay, I see
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Um, he's got such a big catalog of work, and I was just going through it, you know, and I saw, there was like three, maybe there was like three pictures I'd seen, paintings that I really liked, and that was one of them. I'm not sure when he first painted it. It might be 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just I saw it and you just get that feeling where you're like, oh, I like that, you know.
Well, the again, the artist that I mentioned, the reference that I give you was William Charles Uttermohlen,
Mm,
and his series of self-portraits is very interesting. You know how he lost his abilities to or how he's seen himself over the loss of his memories.
mm.
And yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Email me his name. Email me his name after.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I will
cool.
do it. Also, again about the tone of the album, it starts like making a link with the previous tone of the record, but through his progression of the songs, it ends in a very different way. You know, it feels more poetic, more.
Mm,
I do want to mention hope because I don't find like that particular sense of feeling hope, you know.
mm,
But it's very poetic. It's very, you know, very sublime,
mm,
if that's a correct word. For example, a song that is one of my favorites is Behemoth.
mm,
That one is perhaps as of now my favorite. You know, that is pure glory to my ears.
mm. Thank you.
What can you tell me about that song?
Uh, that is the oldest Thief song on the record. I think the basic that song was pretty much written in like 2017. It was not, but I could never get it to sound right. I couldn't get that heavy part in the middle right. I couldn't decide on the lyrics, and my mixing ability, my production skill, I don't think was up knew how to work with it yet. So I had it shelved for years.
So it was a very demanding song for you.
Yeah. Technically, like in the technical sense, it definitely was. Which is interesting because it doesn't sound very intricate, but sometimes it's like you just hit a roadblock, you know, for whatever reason, either technical or an artistic one. And I did on the technical side, and I also just couldn't decide on lyrics. And then, but I always loved it. I would revisit it a lot. And then as I was writing Bleed Memory, I was just like, oh, you know what? Let me try again with that song, and it just worked. Like very quickly, ended up solving, you know, the technical and lyrical issues, and at that particular time, um, you know, lyrically, I really needed uh uh sort of like a very strong, persevering message for myself, and I really wanted to put it out there because I don't know. I think maybe I was in a particularly dark place and I just wanted to find a place in me that was more like, keep going, you can do this, you
Hmm.
know, like that's why it ends with saying like I believe in you. Um
Like this fighting spirit.
yeah, that's the perfect word for it, a fighting spirit. Um, but you know, also it plays with it in a funny way because if someone doesn't know that, um, you know, it also sounds like I'm talking about some entity,
Mhm.
some spirit or some, you know, lower god that I'm worshiping, saying like, I believe in you, you know, like yeah, like
Yeah.
fucking like I'm sure when my mom hears that song, she thinks it's me worshiping the devil for sure.
Um, that song in particular, because of the bass lines at some point, and also what I mentioned before, Numa Enthusiasticon,
Uh-huh.
give me the impression that this album is ready to be played live. I don't know if you
Oh,
are. I don't know if you are planning on that. Well, you mentioned that you are going to play the Rodburn
no, we're a Prophecy Fest, which is
Prophecy
in
Fest. Yeah,
Germany in
Prophecy
September.
Fest.
Yeah, we're actually playing on Sunday. We're having an album release show. And yeah, we'll be playing Behemoth, we'll play Cinderland, and we'll play Prankwin. Um, I would love to play, but you're right. Yes, a lot of this um will translate very well to a live performance. I would love to do Numa Enthusiasticon live, but um I don't know how, like on a tour, if that would be sustainable to
Mm,
do, what is it, like 6 minutes of like screaming my head off and then
yeah,
having to sing Cinderland, you know? That's
very opposite.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And some people can do it. You go and I would like Deftones, he screams a lot and then he'll sing clean, and Maynard from Tool will do the same thing. So technically I don't really know how to sing extreme in a sustainable way. I think a lot of people don't know. Um, so I don't know. That one, maybe we'll do live one day.
Are you familiar with the work of Andromeda Anarchia, the
No,
singer?
who's that?
She is an opera singer which also does graulatura. She's a teacher, and he
Uh-huh.
has a black metal band, and it's sort of opera black metal, with the guitarist of Imperial Triumphant. It's a very new band,
Uh,
and if you are looking for some sort of advice for your singing abilities, maybe she can be a right teacher for that.
yeah. She does she give lessons?
Yeah, she gives lessons.
Oh, hell yeah. No, that's like exactly what I need. Because every time I've gone to vocal instructors and they either know nothing about extreme singing
Mm.
or they only know more extreme singing, and so yeah, that'd be great. I would love that.
Dude, I think that then I think she's perfect because recently she did an opera jazz metal production,
Mm-hmm.
La Suspendida, and the
Mm.
way she sings, right the second right after doing rolls is just uh, it might be impossible.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I want to ask you about plans for coming to Mexico. Maybe have you received an invitation to play
Never,
here?
never received an invitation. We could go play some like in Tijuana. That would be easy and doable. But
I will
we
make
would.
that trip. I will make that trip for sure.
Yeah. How far is TJ from you?
Mm, maybe 10 hours, 10 or 15 hours.
Oh God. Okay,
I
that's
mean,
far.
yeah, it's overnight, I can do it.
Yeah. But for something like that, we'd have to have a little tour around it. If we're gonna drive that far, there either needs to be it either needs to be because we're doing a tour and we have other dates to play and we can make money back, and
Yeah,
or that needs to be, if we were to go to Mexico, it would need to be a festival or something that can pay enough to cover the expenses.
yeah.
Or at least, help out a bit. But I'd love to play Mexico. Would definitely do it if the right place asked us to.
I have this weird question for you. You have to choose the right companionship for a show with Tiff. Let's say you are in the middle. What would you choose as uh, prior to you and next to Tiff to play?
Oh God. I can choose anyone?
Yeah, anyone.
Oh shit. Uh, it's hard for me to decide if I kind of would I do it to match Thief, or would I do it just because I want to hear the bands I really like? I like.
Let's say to match the experience, like you
Okay,
are
okay, okay.
the link between.
Right, right, right. Okay. Can they be broken up or they have to be together?
Yeah, yeah. Dream, man, dream.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, I would do probably after Thief. I would have Olver,
Mm.
but playing their sort of middle catalog, like Perdition City to fuck, what's the record called with the antlers?
Can't remember.
Give me a second. Let's see. Well, it's the one that came out in 2010, I think. It's the one with like it's got the deer or the whatever on it. And
Oh, it's a very long name, right?
Shadows of the Sun.
Ah, just yeah, Shadows of the Sun.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I would have them perform everything in between those two. I love that. And then before us, before us is tough because you don't want them to be too good that you can't you can't compete. Man, I really love Tool, and I would have Tool play the entire Undertow album. I think that's not so much because it works perfectly with Thief. It might not, but that album I love so much. So that's my selfish pick. That's the one I don't care about anything, and the fans can
it doesn't have to make sense. It's for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then Over makes sense, and it is for me.
So you are okay with being the warm-up act for Oliver?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
fine. Also another question in my mind. I don't know if this is correct or not, but I perceive a psychedelic vibe in your music sometimes, and I learned that you lived for a while in a Zen Buddhist temple. And well, my question would be, what sort of things did it change in your view of life to have this experience or moments in your life, and what importance did these moments hold to these days for you?
Yeah. So I still live here. I still live
okay.
Zen Buddhist temple. Yeah. There's there's apartments for residents here. There's definitely a psychedelic influence. I did a lot of psychedelics when I was younger.
There's that hidden language part.
Yeah. And to be honest, most of it, the really impactful experiences were negative. They were
perhaps
like
you needed it.
What's that?
Perhaps you needed it to be negative.
Yeah. I mean, it fucked my brain chemistry, like
okay.
Too
much.
Yeah, just too much, or I wasn't in the right headspace, like I'd never had a panic attack until after this one really bad acid trip,
Okay.
But I was really obsessed with the potential of them. And so once I stopped doing psychedelics, I still had that curiosity, of that I was trying to satisfy with psychedelics, like, who am I? What does it mean to be alive? Is there anything else? What is this? And so I had that, and I kind of got into meditation a little bit, no particular form or practice. I just had some books and would kind of do it on my own. And then eventually a therapist had recommended to me that I find a particular practice to investigate. And so I was like, well, I like Zen Buddhism. I learned about it in college. It was like, I knew that they wore all black. I knew that they didn't have a lot of like the hippie language. It's like the most metal form of Buddhism. So I was like, okay. So I just typed in like Zen Buddhism, California, and where I'm at now, the Zen Center of Los Angeles was the first place that popped up, and so I just started coming here. I just went one day, and I really liked it. I liked the teachers, and then your other part of the question is, how did it affect me? How did it change me?
Yeah.
It's an ongoing practice. I think I've lived here for 10 years, and I think I've been practicing for about 12, 13 years, and it just it's really changed and shifted my relationship to my life, to the world around me. You know, I less and less have the experience of things are happening to me. Things are out there and separate to me. And it's sort of just bringing them all closer together to where there's no gap between me and life and reality. And so instead of this happened to me, it's more of like, oh, this thing happened. And there's less of an observer and you know, an objective sort of subject object relationship, I would say.
You say less of an observer or more of an observer?
Sorry, less of a
Less.
less of an observer and more of an experience.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
Makes
there
sense.
is the observing aspect. There is like an awareness, but awareness is a better term than observer, because observer sort
Right.
of, yeah, observer um suggests that there is a separation from
Mm-hmm.
you and the thing. Awareness is more all-encompassing. Awareness
Okay.
can hold both, I think.
Mm. I don't know why I made that connection with the psychedelic aspect of it. I mean, it's very different. It can be very healing also
Yeah.
in a different type of thing. Maybe acid wasn't the right choice for it, you know.
I
Perhaps
did a
there's
lot. I did acid, I did shrooms, I did it all. I had good trips, you know, but most of it was bad. And but you're right, that they connect. The same thing that led me to want to do psychedelics is what led me to meditation, you know?
and you are still living that true experience in your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You change your views and you can be the person you once was before.
Yeah, you know, I feel that way about uh meditation. I didn't
Exactly.
quite get that with psychedelics, although that's what I wanted. And I know that that's often what happens is people do have that positive experience. Um yeah, I mean I always really wanted to go to like Oaxaca and do like a
Mm,
shroom ceremony thing there that I don't know why white people are obsessed with doing that, but I just had heard that they have like the most potent shrooms, you know, so I really wanted to check it out.
amanitas.
Oh, amanitas, those are scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, two final questions.
Hmm.
I mentioned that I find this album, all of your work fascinating, and
Hmm.
it's the reason that I go for to listen everything that you've done. Um, so I'm now asking you if you could mention, recommend artists, current artists, discoveries of your own that you find fascinating.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. Um, you know, only a couple of years ago, my live bassist turned me on to a guy called uh Jackson and his computer band.
Okay.
Awesome. It's very like IDM, Warp Records. It's like uh he's a French guy. Also the French IDM artist Cubrus, Queubrus. He's since died, but just absolutely alien music. I
Mm,
never ever heard anything like it. It's electronic and it's almost it's almost closer to noise and avant-garde music than it is to um electronic music. It's so alien and strange. Uh the Goslings, I somehow just randomly found on YouTube, like great, super heavy. It sounds like they just turned all the mics up, all the amps up, everything all the way. It's like the texture of the noise and distortion is just as important as the songs themselves. Um, yeah, definitely check out the Goslings. They are so heavy and so cool sounding. Speaking of this, and this is all going to be recent stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of like really noisy stuff, the Garo Gary Gay Gay Gay, the Japanese noise band, I have unironically fallen in love with over the past probably 3 or 4 years. Just fucking like 90 to 100 songs on an album. They're all 3 seconds long. They all start out with him yelling 1, 2, 3, 4. That one of the band members, his role in the band is to masturbate on stage. Just like really fucking crazy weird shit. But also, besides like this complete audio destruction of noise, they're like if Merzbow actually played instruments.
Mm.
Um, also makes some of the most serene and beautiful ambient post-rocky stuff. It's all weird. It's all weird. It's all very experimental, but
What was
uh
the name again? Sorry.
it's long. The Garo Gary Gay Gay Gay. So it's
Japanese.
it's Japanese.
Okay.
GEROGERIGEGE.
Do you know Violent Magic Orchestra from Japan?
No, I do not.
VMO abbreviated. They recently released an album. They started as a black noise band years
Yeah.
ago, and they morphed into electronic, like hard stuff, hard,
Oh, interesting.
techno, and it's,
Yeah.
it's just crazy,
Yeah.
I searched for Kubrick. I seen the album Call of the Void, from Romania. I don't know if that's the same you're mentioning.
No.
Okay, I was wrong with that.
For which did you search for?
Kubrick from Romania, Bucharest, Romania.
Kubrick. No. For it's cute. Let me type it in
Kubrick, like the director.
like that.
Okay. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, I believe that's how it's spelled. Let me look too. Hubris. Well, that says Cyprus. No, that's not right.
Hebrews.
Oh, Quebrus.
Okay, without. Okay. I listen to some of these things. I remember because of the names are unfindable, just
Right. Yeah.
symbols. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for. I will pay more close attention to this artist.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your suggestions. I will search for it. I want to recommend you a band called Sleepwalker.
Sleepwalker.
I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No, I'm not.
Actually, I mean, Sleepwalker is like the translation is written in kanji, I think.
Uh-huh.
It's a anonymous trio from Russia, someone from the United States, and someone from Japan, I believe. And they do interesting stuff with black psychedelic things.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I'll check them out. Is
Well,
that wait, wait. I see that you have fuck, what's his name? Wait, don't help.
Terrence.
Terrence McKenna on your as your avatar. Oh,
Yeah.
you are into psychedelics.
I am. I mean, and I have been since I discovered him, like 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah, he was influential on me too. I remember reading Food of the Gods,
Mm.
and using that as sort of like a trip guide. I like read some of my favorite passages from it, and then I would trip after. Yeah, he's really interesting. I really like his I like a lot of his literary commentary. His commentary on James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake is really, really fascinating. Yeah. He's funny. Terrence McKenna.
Yeah, he's funny
He's a
actually.
trip. He's a trip. He's also a trip, man. He's
The
fucking out
the
there. Some of his
the
stuff. The
the
DMT elves I could never understand.
the dominion of the language that guy had,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
how to restructure your brain just with words.
yeah,
It's something special. One of
yeah.
my one of my favorite quotes from him is just a joke. Take it
Mhm.
easy, dude, but take it.
That's good. I like My favorite quote about him is from him is uh the greatest place the most people never get to the greatest place you can on weed, and it's when you say, "My God, I've done too much." I've had that experience on weed. I never really liked weed, but there
he
were times I got so stoned that it became psychedelic. It was
mm,
terrifying. It was very intense, but
he mentioned that something about wheat, that the perfect way to digest it was like once every week or once every month. But
Mhm.
he couldn't do it. I mean, he recognized that, but he was a stonehead, you know. So
Yeah.
every moment he was smoking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he introduces me to Carl Jung, to
Carl
the
Jung. Oh yeah,
to
big time. Hmm.
yeah, great personality. Final question: if you could assimilate the I want to say thief, but no, just this work, this memory, like the the images in your head, what you understand of this album, and link them to another piece of work that already exists, like a movie, a painting, a book. Which one would it be and why?
Uh, I don't know. Uh, the very, very first image that came into my mind, and maybe it's a bit cliche, is um the the original Nosferatu film, the black and white silent one.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, the movie itself is okay, but the imagery is so cool. He's just like,
Mm.
yeah, that's not what I thought I would say, but when you ask that question, that's the mental image I got, so I'm just gonna go with that.
The important part is that you answered honestly. For me, I don't know. I see these songs, these melodies playing in an action movie, action sci-fi movie. You know, it's very
Uh,
compact of action driven. You know,
uh-huh.
yeah. Well, this was all for me. Thank you, Dylan, for your time, and hope to see you sometime in Mexico playing.
Awesome. Alfonso, great to meet you. We will, I'm sure, one day make it to Mexico. Um, email me your address. I'll send you some stuff.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, and I will email you the name of the author that I referenced,
Yeah.
and also Andromeda Anarchia if you just you want to consider that,
The vocal,
interest.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
And good luck with the release, amazing stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye bye.